Jake Morrison stood in front of the massive doors that led to the council chamber. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. Today would change everything for humanity. Either they would finally get a seat at the galactic table, or they would be turned away like children asking to sit with adults. The doors opened with a soft hiss. Jake walked into the most beautiful room he had ever seen. The chamber was huge, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch up forever. Floating, platforms hung in the air, arranged in perfect circles. Each platform held ornate seats made from materials Jake could not even name. Some glowed with soft light, others seemed to be carved from single massive gems. On these platforms sat the representatives of the 12 most powerful species in the galaxy. Jake had studied each one for months, but seeing them in person was something else entirely. The elves sat on platforms that looked like they were made of living wood. Their pointed ears and graceful movements made them seem almost like magic beings from old Earth stories. Their leader, Lyra Moonwhisper, watched Jake with cold eyes that held centuries of wisdom and judgment. The Zarian Empire delegates sat on platforms of gleaming metal and crystal. Their skin had a blue tint, and their bodies were tall and thin. Zara Veltar, their main speaker, had technology built into her very clothing. Tiny lights blinked along her arms, and Jake could see data flowing across screens woven into her outfit. There were others, too. The rock-like beings from the Titan worlds, the gas cloud creatures who wore mechanical suits to interact with solid matter, the insect-like hive minds who spoke in perfect unison. Each species had ruled their part of the galaxy for thousands of years. At the center of all these platforms, Jake saw something that made him pause. There was an empty throne, larger and more beautiful than all the others. It seemed to be made of some kind of dark metal that reflected light in impossible ways. Stars appeared to move within its surface. "Captain Morrison," Lyra's voice rang, out, clear and musical. "You have requested an audience with the Galactic Confederation. State your purpose." Jake stepped forward to the speaking area in the center of the room. He had practiced this speech 100 times, but now, surrounded by beings who had shaped the galaxy while humans were still learning to make fire, the words felt small and weak. "Honored members of the Confederation," Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I come before you today to request membership for humanity in this great alliance of worlds." A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through some of the delegates. The insect-like hive speakers clicked their mandibles in a sound Jake had learned meant mild interest. "Humanity has much to offer," Jake continued. "We are young, yes, but that gives us energy and new ideas. We have traveled from a single world to dozens of star systems in just 200 years. We have learned to work together despite our differences. We have faced challenges that would have destroyed other species, and we have grown stronger." Jake pulled up a holographic display showing human achievements. Cities floating in the clouds of gas giants, mining operations in the hearts of asteroids, research stations studying black holes from closer than any other species dared to go. We bring new technology, new perspectives, and most importantly, we bring hope. Hope that the galaxy can continue to grow and change, that new solutions can be found to old problems. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then Lyra spoke again. "You speak of youth as a strength, Captain Morrison. We see it as a weakness. Your species has known space travel for barely 2 centuries. Some of us have served on this council for longer than your entire space age. You have fought wars among yourselves within living memory. How can we trust you with the responsibility of galactic citizenship?" Zara Veltar's platform floated forward slightly. "The Zarian Empire has observed human expansion with interest. Your technology is impressive, for your age, but it lacks the refinement that comes with time. Your diplomatic efforts are often crude. Your military tactics show potential but lack the sophistication needed for truly challenging conflicts." Jake felt his cheeks get hot, but he kept his voice calm. Every species had to start somewhere. The elves were once young too. The Zerion Empire must have made mistakes when they first reached the stars. We are asking for a chance to prove ourselves, not demanding immediate full membership. Perhaps we could start as observers, or with limited voting rights. A new voice spoke up, softer than the others. The captain makes a fair point. Jake looked up to see another elf, younger than Lyra, with silver hair instead of gold. This was Luna Silverleaf, and Jake had read that she was considered progressive by elven standards. Humanity has shown remarkable adaptability, Luna continued. They have survived on worlds that other species find impossible to live on. They have created art and music that even we find moving. Perhaps there is wisdom in considering their request. Lyra's eyes flashed with something that might have been anger. Luna, you forget yourself. This council has existed for over 3,000 years without human input. We have maintained peace, prosperity, and order. Why should we risk that for an untested species? The debate continued for hours. Jake answered questions about human culture, technology, and intentions. Some delegates seemed genuinely interested, others openly hostile. The beings from the hive minds asked detailed questions about human individual thinking versus group decisions. The rock-like titans wanted to know about human mining and construction methods. But as the day wore on, Jake could see which way the vote would go. Too many of the older, more powerful species saw humanity as a threat to the comfortable order they had built. They spoke of humans being too aggressive, too unpredictable, too young. When the vote finally came, it was not even close. 47 delegates voted against human membership. Only 3 voted in favor, Luna and 2 representatives from smaller, newer species that had joined the Confederation within the last 1,000 years. 2 delegates chose not to vote at all. The decision is final, Lyra announced. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Confederation. We suggest you return to your worlds and continue your development. Perhaps in another century or 2, you will be ready to join civilized galactic society. Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. All those months of preparation, all the hope that humanity had placed in this mission, crushed in a single moment. As he turned to leave, Luna caught his eye. She made a small gesture that he almost missed, touching her communication device briefly. Then she looked at the empty throne in the center of the chamber and back at Jake. Her message was clear, though Jake did not understand it yet. Jake walked out of the chamber with his head high, but inside, he was already planning. This was not over. Humanity deserved better than this dismissal, and somehow, some way, he was going to make sure they got it. The empty throne seemed to watch him go, waiting for someone worthy to claim it. Jake Morrison sat in his small apartment on Earth, staring at the rejection message that had arrived 3 days after he returned from the Confederation station. The official words were polite, but the meaning was clear. Humanity was not welcome in galactic society. Dr. Amy Foster knocked on his door just after sunset. She was one of the smartest people Jake knew, a scientist who had spent her life studying alien cultures and languages. Her red hair was messy from working long hours, and she carried a bag full of old books and data tablets. "Still feeling sorry for yourself?" Amy asked as she walked in without waiting for an invitation. "I'm not feeling sorry for myself," Jake said. "I'm angry. There has to be something we can do." Amy sat down at his kitchen table and pulled out her research materials. "Funny you should say that. I've been digging through old galactic law texts, and I found something interesting." She activated a holographic display that showed ancient symbols and text. "This is from the first galactic civilization, the ones who started the whole Confederation idea over 5,000 years ago. Most of their laws were replaced or forgotten, but some of them are still technically valid." Jake leaned forward. "What kind of laws?" "The right of conquest," Amy said. "It's buried so deep in the legal code that I don't think anyone has looked at it for thousands of years. According to this, any species can challenge for leadership of the Confederation through a series of trials. Jake stared at the text, even though he could not read the ancient symbols. Leadership? You mean like becoming the rulers of the whole Confederation? More like becoming the senior members with the authority to make major decisions, Amy explained. The trials test 4 things: military strength, diplomatic skill, technological innovation, and moral character. If a species passes all 4, they get the right to claim the highest seat in the Confederation. The empty throne, Jake said quietly, remembering Luna's meaningful look. Exactly. No one has attempted the trials in over 3,000 years. Most species probably don't even know they exist. Jake's communication device buzzed. An encrypted message was coming through from an unknown sender. He opened it carefully, and Luna Silverleaf's face appeared on the small screen. "Captain Morrison," she said quietly, looking around as if someone might be watching her. "I hope this message reaches you safely. I wanted to apologize for the Council's decision. It was wrong, and many of us know it." Luna paused, then continued. "I have been studying your species for several years. Humanity has qualities that the galaxy desperately needs. We have become too comfortable, too set in our ways. The Confederation is dying slowly, and we don't even see it." The message showed Luna in what looked like her private quarters. Elven writing covered the walls, and Jake could see star charts and data displays. "There are threats coming from the outer regions of the galaxy that the Council refuses to take seriously," Luna said. "New hostile species, unexplored dangers, problems that require fresh thinking. The old ways are not enough anymore." Luna's image looked directly at Jake. "I cannot help you openly without being branded a traitor to my own people. But I can tell you this. There are ancient laws that supersede the Council's authority. Dr. Foster will know how to find them." The message ended, leaving Jake and Amy staring at each other. "She's talking about the right of conquest," Amy said. "She must know about it." Jake's device buzzed again. This time the message was from Zara Veltar, the Zerion delegate. Her blue-tinted face appeared on the screen, but her expression was hard to read. "Captain Morrison," Zara said formally, "the Zerion Empire wishes to express our respect for your presentation to the Council. While we could not support your membership application at this time, we recognize human potential." Zara's tone was diplomatic, but Jake sensed something else underneath. "I would be interested in discussing future cooperation between our species. Perhaps we could meet informally to explore possibilities." When that message ended, Jake looked at Amy. "What do you think?" "I think the Zerion Empire wants to keep an eye on us," Amy said. "They're probably worried about what we might do next, but that could work in our favor." Over the next few weeks, Jake and Amy dove deep into ancient galactic law. They found references to the trials scattered across dozens of different legal texts and historical records. The more they learned, the more impossible it seemed. The military trial required facing the combined forces of multiple Confederation species in simulated combat. The diplomatic trial involved solving conflicts that had lasted for centuries. The technology trial demanded innovations that could benefit the entire galaxy. The moral trial was the most mysterious of all. Some sources suggested it took place in a kind of virtual reality that tested the deepest parts of a person's character. "No single person has ever attempted all 4 trials," Amy said one evening, as they worked late in her laboratory. "The few who tried usually failed at the first or second trial and gave up. But someone could do it," Jake said. Theoretically, yes. But Jake, this isn't just about you. The trials require representing your entire species. If you fail, humanity would be banned from ever trying again." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of the city and the transport ships carrying people to the stars. Millions of humans lived throughout this part of the galaxy now, on space stations and colony worlds and research outposts. They deserved better than being treated like children by the Confederation. His communication device buzzed with another, encrypted message from Luna. This time, she looked worried. "Jake, I hope you and Dr. Foster have been researching the old laws. Time may be running out. Some members of the Council are discussing ways to prevent humanity from ever gaining significant power in the galaxy. They want to establish new rules that would make it impossible for young species to challenge the established order." Luna glanced around nervously before continuing. "If you are going to act, it must be soon. And you should know that you will not be facing just the trials. There are those who will try to sabotage your efforts, who will do anything to maintain their privileged positions." The message included data files with more information about the trials, including their locations, and some details about the specific challenges involved. A few days later, Jake received a request to meet with Zara Veltar on a neutral space station, near the border between human and Zarian space. Amy advised against it, but Jake decided to go. The meeting took place in a small restaurant overlooking the station's main docking bay. Zara arrived exactly on time, wearing civilian clothes that still somehow managed to look official. Her technology implants were less obvious, but Jake could still see data flowing across contact lenses in her eyes. "Captain Morrison," she said as she sat down, "thank you for agreeing to meet." "What does the Zarian Empire want?" Jake asked directly. Zara smiled slightly. "Straight to the point. I like that about humans. We want to understand your intentions. The Council's rejection was harsh, but it was not unexpected. What concerns us is what you might do next. And what do you think we might do?" "We think you are too stubborn to simply accept defeat," Zara said. "Our intelligence suggests that Dr. Foster has been researching ancient galactic law. We wonder if humanity might be considering alternative approaches to membership." Jake kept his face neutral. "We're exploring all legal options." "Legal, yes, but perhaps not wise." Zara leaned forward. "The right of conquest exists, Captain. We know about it, but no species has attempted it for good reason. The trials are designed to be nearly impossible. And even if someone succeeded, do you think the current Confederation members would simply accept a new leader? Are you threatening us?" "I am warning you. As someone who has come to respect human determination, I am suggesting that there might be easier paths to what you want." Jake studied Zara's face. Her concern seemed genuine, but he could not tell if she was trying to help humanity or manipulate them. "What kind of easier paths?" "Patient diplomacy. Gradual integration, building relationships with individual species rather than challenging the entire system at once. The Zarian Empire could be a valuable ally in such an approach." When Jake returned to Earth, he found Amy waiting with more research. She had discovered the exact procedures for invoking the right of conquest and the timeline for completing the trials. "We have everything we need," she said. "The question is, are we really going to do this?" Jake looked at the data, then at the stars visible through the laboratory window. Somewhere out there, Luna was risking her position to help them. Somewhere else, Zara was probably reporting back to her superiors about their meeting. "The Confederation rejected us because they think we're too young and too weak," Jake said. "Maybe it's time to prove them wrong." Jake Morrison stood in the Confederation Council chamber once again, but this time everything was different. Instead of asking for membership, he was demanding something much bigger. "I invoke the ancient right of conquest," Jake announced clearly. His voice carried through the chamber, and he watched as confusion spread across the faces of the delegates. Some looked puzzled, others suddenly worried. Lyra Moonwhisper leaned forward on her platform. "Captain Morrison, I do not know what human games you are playing, but this council does not recognize Section 4, Article 12 of the original Confederation Charter." Amy Foster interrupted from beside Jake. She activated a holographic display showing the ancient text. "The right of conquest supersedes all subsequent laws and cannot be revoked by council vote." Luna Silverleaf's platform floated closer. Jake could see she was trying not to smile. "The human is correct," she said formally. "The law exists and is still valid. Any species may challenge for Confederation leadership through the 4 trials." "This is ridiculous," Zara Veltar said, but Jake noticed she did not sound as confident as usual. "The trials have not been attempted for over 3,000 years. The procedures, the locations, everything has been forgotten." Amy activated another display. "Trial locations are specified in the original charter. The military trial takes place in the Kepler asteroid field. Diplomatic trial at the neutral station of Harmony. Technological trial on the research world of Innovation Prime. The final moral trial location is given only to those who pass the first 3. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates demanded that the ancient law be declared invalid. Others insisted that proper procedures be followed. The representatives from smaller, newer species watched with obvious interest. After hours of debate, the Confederation's legal experts confirmed what Amy had discovered. The right of conquest was real, it was valid, and Jake had every right to attempt the trials. "Very well," Lyra said coldly. "Humanity may attempt the trials. When you fail, your species will be banned from Confederation membership permanently. No second chances." "Understood," Jake replied. The first trial came quickly. Jake found himself in command of a small human fleet in the asteroid field, where Admiral Kate Brooks usually trained their best pilots. The trial rules were simple: survive and complete objectives while Confederation forces tried to stop him. Jake stood on the bridge of the Earthship Defiance, watching as enemy vessels appeared on their sensors. The Confederation had sent ships from 5 different species, each with their own fighting styles and advanced technology. "They outnumber us 3-1, Commander Nina Cross reported from the tactical station. "Their ships are more heavily armed and better shielded." "Then we don't fight them directly," Jake said. He studied the asteroid field around them. "Nina, can our mining charges crack these asteroids?" "Easily, but I don't see how that helps us." "Amy, what did your geological surveys tell us about this field?" Dr. Foster pulled up data on her tablet. "The asteroids are mostly iron and nickel, but there are pockets of crystalline structures that could create chain reactions if destabilized." Jake smiled. "Then we're not fighting ships. We're fighting physics." The battle began with the Confederation fleet advancing in standard formation. Jake ordered his ships to retreat deeper into the asteroid field, making the enemy think the humans were trying to hide among the rocks. "They're following us in," Nina reported. "Confederation tactical doctrine says to flush out hiding enemies with overwhelming firepower." "Perfect. Amy, start transmitting the resonance frequencies to all ships. Nina, target those crystalline asteroids on my mark." The Confederation ships opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up space. But instead of shooting back, the human ships fired mining charges at specific asteroids around the enemy fleet. The first explosion created a chain reaction. Crystal formations in the asteroids resonated at frequencies that destabilized neighboring rocks. Within minutes, the Confederation ships found themselves trapped in an expanding field of debris and unpredictable gravitational forces. How did they know? One of the enemy commanders transmitted in confusion as his ship was caught in an asteroid collision. "Humans study everything," Jake replied over the open channel. "We learned this field better than you ever did." The Confederation fleet was forced to retreat, their advanced technology useless against an enemy that had turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. The second trial tested diplomatic skills. Jake found himself on Harmony Station facing 3 species that had been at war for over 200 years. The Flame Dancers, energy beings who lived in plasma clouds, had been fighting the Crystal Builders, who created cities in solid matter, over territory rights. The third group, the Void Walkers, lived in the empty space between stars and claimed both other species were trespassing in their domain. Previous Confederation attempts to solve this conflict had failed because each species could barely communicate with the others. The Flame Dancers spoke in electromagnetic pulses. The Crystal Builders used vibrations through solid matter, and the Void Walkers communicated through gravitational waves. Jake spent 3 days learning the basics of each communication method. Then he proposed something radical. Instead of trying to divide territory, what if all 3 species shared it? The Flame Dancers need plasma and energy, Jake explained through his translation devices. The Crystal Builders need solid matter to work with. The Void Walkers need empty space. But what if we created hybrid zones where all 3 environments exist together? Dr. Foster helped him design orbital structures that would provide plasma, fields for the Flame Dancers, asteroid mining platforms for the Crystal Builders, and vast empty spaces for the Void Walkers. Each species would contribute their unique abilities to maintain the whole system. The Flame Dancers can provide energy for the Crystal Builder machines, Jake continued. The Crystal Builders can create structures that help the Void Walkers navigate. The Void Walkers can maintain the empty spaces that both other species need for expansion. It took 2 weeks of careful negotiation, but eventually all 3 species agreed to try the hybrid arrangement. For the first time in centuries, they signed a peace agreement. Luna Silverleaf was present as an observer for this trial. "I have never seen anything like it," she told Jake privately. "You did not try to impose human ideas on them. You found a solution that honored what each species truly needed." The third trial brought Jake to Innovation Prime, a world covered with research facilities where the galaxy's best scientists worked on impossible problems. Dr. Foster took the lead here, presenting human innovations to a panel of the Confederation's top minds. "The Confederation has struggled with the Red Plague for over 50 years, Amy began her presentation. "It has killed millions on frontier worlds and made entire star systems uninhabitable." The alien scientists nodded sadly. The Red Plague was a biological weapon left behind by an extinct species, and no one had been able to find a cure. "Human biotechnology approaches problems differently," Amy continued. "Instead of trying to destroy the plague organisms, we learned to work with them." She activated a display showing microscopic images. "The plague organisms are not actually hostile. They are trying to transform organic matter into a form their creators could use. But their creators are gone, so the process never completes." Amy's solution was brilliant. Instead of fighting the plague, human scientists had developed a way to complete the transformation process, then reverse it. The plague organisms would finish their work and then naturally die off, leaving the original organic matter restored. "We tested this on 3 infected worlds," Amy said. "Complete cure in all cases with no side effects." The Confederation scientists were stunned. They had been fighting the plague with advanced weapons and complex medical procedures. Humans had solved it by understanding what the plague actually wanted. Zara Veltar was present for this trial as well. After Amy's presentation, she approached Jake with a troubled expression. "Your Dr. Foster has just solved a problem that our best minds could not handle," she said. "The Xerian Empire is beginning to understand that we may have seriously underestimated humanity." "Does that change anything?" Jake asked. Zara was quiet for a moment. "It changes everything. My government sent me to gather intelligence on human capabilities. They wanted to know if you posed a threat to Confederation stability. Now, I have to report that you might be exactly what the galaxy needs." Jake had passed 3 of the 4 trials. The military trial had shown human tactical innovation. The diplomatic trial had demonstrated human ability to find creative solutions to old problems. The technology trial had proven that human science could benefit the entire galaxy. But the 4th trial, the test of moral character, was still waiting. And Jake was beginning to understand that this final challenge would be the most dangerous of all. Luna sent him one last encrypted message before the final trial began. "Jake, you have done the impossible. 3 trials completed, and even your enemies are starting to respect what humanity can achieve. But be careful. The moral trial is different from the others. It will test not just your abilities, but your deepest values. Remember that true leadership is not. The final trial took place on Primordialis, the ancient world where galactic civilization first reached the stars. Jake stood before the Temple of First Contact, a massive structure that seemed to grow from the planet's surface like a living thing. The building was older than any human civilization, made from materials that still puzzled Confederation scientists. The moral trial is different from the others, Luna explained as she walked with Jake toward the temple entrance. She was officially there as an observer, but Jake knew she was risking everything by helping him. It takes place inside your mind, but the experiences feel completely real. You will face choices that reveal your true character. What kind of choices? Jake asked. I cannot tell you. The trial is different for each person. But I can say this. The simulation will offer you everything you think you want. Power. Revenge against your enemies. Glory for humanity. The test is whether you can choose what is right instead of what is easy. As they reached the temple doors, Jake's communication device buzzed with an urgent message from Admiral Kate Brooks, back on Earth. Jake, we're picking up Xerion Empire military movements near human space. Large fleets moving fast. It could be an invasion force. Jake stopped walking. If the Xerion Empire was attacking human worlds while he was here taking trials, everything would be lost regardless of whether he passed or failed. It might be a distraction, Luna said quietly. Some Confederation members would rather see humanity destroyed than risk you succeeding. Before Jake could respond, Zara Veltar appeared from behind the temple. She was wearing full Xerion military armor instead of her usual diplomatic clothes, and she looked tired and worried. Jake, we need to talk, she said urgently. My government has issued orders that I cannot follow. What orders? Zara glanced around to make sure they were alone. They want me to eliminate you before you complete the final trial. The Xerion Empire has decided that human leadership of the Confederation would be unacceptable. Jake felt his hand move toward his weapon, but Zara raised both hands peacefully. I am not here to follow those orders, she said. I am here to warn you. The fleet movements near human space are real, but they are not an invasion. They are a threat. If you continue with the trial, if you claim the Confederation leadership, those fleets will attack human colonies. Luna stepped forward angrily. The Xerion Empire would violate galactic law to prevent the trials? Not officially, Zara replied. Officially, it would be a response to human aggression. There would be false evidence, manufactured incidents. My government is very good at making their enemies look like the attackers. Jake felt the weight of impossible choices settling on his shoulders. If he continued with the trial and won, human colonies might be destroyed. If he stopped now, humanity would never get another chance at Confederation membership. There is more, Zara continued. I have discovered that several Confederation species have been working together against you. Not just the Xerion Empire, the elves, the hive minds, even some of the smaller species. They have been secretly coordinating to make sure humanity fails. How do you know this? Luna demanded. Because they asked the Xerion Empire to join their conspiracy, Zara said. My superiors agreed, but they did not tell me until after I had already begun to respect what humanity could achieve. Jake looked at Zara carefully. You're risking your career, maybe your life, to warn us. Why? Because I have seen what you accomplished in the trials. The Confederation has grown comfortable and corrupt. We solve problems the same old ways, follow the same old patterns. Humanity brings something new, something we need. Zara pulled out a data tablet and handed it to Jake. This contains evidence of the conspiracy against you. Communication records, meeting notes, military deployment orders. If you make this public, it will create a massive scandal in the Confederation. But Jake sensed there was more. But it will also start a civil war. The species involved will not accept exposure quietly. The Confederation could tear itself apart. Luna looked at the data tablet, then at Jake. You could use this to stop the threats against human colonies. Blackmail the conspirators into backing down. Or, Jake said slowly, I could complete the final trial and deal with the consequences afterward. He walked to the temple entrance and placed his hand on the ancient door control. The massive doors began to open, revealing a chamber filled with soft, pulsing light. I am going to finish what I started, Jake said. Whatever happens after that, we will face it together. The moral trial began as soon as Jake stepped into the temple's inner chamber. The room filled with light, and suddenly Jake was somewhere else entirely. He stood in the Confederation Council chamber, but now he sat on the central throne. The other species representatives bowed before him, acknowledging his authority. Human ships patrolled every corner of the galaxy, enforcing Jake's will with overwhelming force. You have won, a voice said. It sounded like his own voice, but older and harder. Humanity rules the galaxy now. The species that rejected you are now your servants. The elves who called you too young now beg for your mercy. The Xerian Empire that threatened your people now follows your orders. Jake looked around the chamber. It was everything he had dreamed of during the long months after humanity's rejection. Complete victory, total power, revenge against everyone who had dismissed his species. All you have to do is accept it, the voice continued. Take the power that is rightfully yours. Make them pay for their insults. But Jake remembered Luna's words about doing what was right instead of what was easy. This is not leadership, he said. This is tyranny. The scene changed. Now Jake stood on Earth, but it was an Earth transformed. Massive cities covered every continent, reaching up toward the stars. Human technology had advanced by centuries in just a few years. Disease, poverty, and conflict were things of the past. You could have this too, the voice said. Use Confederation resources to make humanity the greatest species in the galaxy. Why should you care about other worlds when you could make your own people into gods? Jake looked at the beautiful vision of Earth's future. It would be so easy to focus only on humanity's advancement, to use his new position to benefit his own species above all others. Because that is not why I started this, Jake said. I wanted humanity to join the galaxy, not conquer it. The scene changed again. This time Jake saw Zara in chains, being executed for helping him. Luna was stripped of her position and exiled from Elven society. The other species that had opposed humanity were facing punishment for their conspiracy. Justice demands that your enemies pay for their crimes, the voice said. They plotted against you, threatened your people, tried to destroy your chances. Do they not deserve to suffer as they made you suffer? Jake watched as the simulation showed him all the ways he could punish those who had wronged humanity. It would be satisfying, and many people would say it was deserved. Justice is not the same as revenge, Jake said finally. Punishment should serve a purpose, not just satisfy anger. The final test was the hardest. Jake found himself back in the real temple chamber, but now Zara and Luna were both there, held captive by Xerion soldiers. Choose, the simulation demanded. Save one of them, and the other dies. Save both, and human colonies are destroyed. Save neither, and claim the throne with clean hands while they pay the price for helping you. Jake looked at Zara, who had risked everything to warn him about the conspiracy. He looked at Luna, who had supported humanity from the beginning despite the cost to herself. He thought about the human colonies that might be attacked, the millions of innocent lives that hung in the balance. I choose to reject the choice, Jake said. Real leadership means finding solutions that others cannot see, not just picking the least bad option from a list. The simulation flickered and changed. How will you do that? By telling the truth, Jake said. By exposing the conspiracy publicly and letting the Confederation decide for itself what kind of organization it wants to be, by offering forgiveness instead of punishment to those who opposed me, by proving that humanity deserves leadership not because we can fight or threaten, but because we can bring out the best in others. The light in the chamber grew brighter, and Jake felt a strange sensation, as if the temple itself was judging his words and finding them acceptable. When the light faded, Jake stood alone in the chamber. The trial was over, and somehow he knew he had passed. But as he walked out of the temple, he also knew that the real test was just beginning. Zara and Luna were waiting for him outside, both of them free and unharmed. The threats from the simulation had been illusions, but the moral choices had been real. "What did you decide?" Luna asked. Jake looked up at the stars visible in Primordialis's sky. Somewhere out there, Confederation fleets were preparing for war. Somewhere else, human colonies waited to see if their representative would choose power or principle. "I decided to trust the galaxy to make the right choice," Jake said. "Now we find out if I was right." Jake Morrison walked into the Confederation Council chamber for the third time, but now everything had changed. Word of his successful completion of all 4 trials had spread throughout the galaxy, and the chamber was packed with representatives. From species both large and small, the empty throne at the center of the room seemed to pulse with anticipation. After 3,000 years of waiting, someone had finally proven worthy to claim it. But Jake was not walking alone. Zara Veltar walked beside him, no longer wearing Zarian military armor. She had resigned her commission rather than follow her government's orders to eliminate him. Luna Silverleaf was there too, having been stripped of her official position but gaining something more valuable, respect from younger members of her species who saw her as a hero for supporting change. "Members of the Galactic Confederation," Jake announced as he reached the speaking area. "I have completed the 4 trials as specified in the ancient laws. I have proven humanity's military capability, diplomatic skill, technological innovation, and moral character. I claim the right to lead this confederation." Lyra Moonwhisper's face was cold with anger. "Even if you have completed these trials, the Confederation will not accept human leadership. We have maintained order for thousands of years without needing guidance from a species that has barely left its home world." "The trials are the law," Luna said firmly. "Ancient law that supersedes all council authority. Jake Morrison has earned the right to sit on the central throne." Several other delegates began arguing. Some demanded that the trials be declared invalid. Others insisted that the Confederation should be dissolved rather than accept human leadership. The chamber filled with angry voices in dozens of different languages. Jake raised his hand for silence. "Before we continue, there is something you all need to know." He activated a holographic display showing the evidence Zara had given him. "Some members of this confederation have been working in secret to ensure humanity's failure, not just in the trials, but permanently." The display showed communication records between Zirion, Elven, and other species governments, plans to attack human colonies if Jake succeeded, agreements to manufacture false evidence of human aggression, coordination to block any future human membership attempts. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates denied the evidence, others demanded explanations from their colleagues. Species that had not been part of the conspiracy looked shocked and angry. "This is what the Confederation has become," Jake said when the noise died down. "A closed club where established powers work together to keep out anyone who might challenge their comfortable positions. Is this the organization you want to represent your people?" Zara stepped forward. "The evidence is real. I compiled most of it myself before I chose to warn Captain Morrison instead of following my orders to kill him." More arguments broke out. The Zarian delegation accused Zara of treason. The Elven representatives claimed the conspiracy was justified to maintain stability. Smaller species began demanding investigations and reforms. Jake watched the chaos for several minutes, then walked toward the central throne. The arguing stopped as delegates realized what he was doing. According to the ancient law, this throne is mine by right, Jake said, as he reached the steps leading up to the magnificent seat. I have proven my worthiness through trials that no one has completed in 3,000 years. He climbed the steps slowly, feeling the weight of galactic history. When he reached the throne, he paused and looked out at all the representatives watching him. But I do not want a throne, Jake said. I do not want to rule over other species or force my will on the galaxy. That is not why humanity sought Confederation membership. Jake turned to face the throne, then did something that shocked everyone in the chamber. Instead of sitting down, he placed his hands on the armrests and began to push. What are you doing? Lyra demanded. Something that should have been done long ago, Jake replied. With effort, he pushed the massive throne back from its central position. Ancient mechanisms that had not moved for millennia groaned as the throne slid across the chamber floor. Jake did not stop until the throne was positioned among the other seats, just one platform among many, instead of the commanding central position it had held for thousands of years. The Confederation does not need a ruler, Jake announced. It needs partners, species working together as equals, contributing their unique strengths to solve common problems. He activated another holographic display, this one showing his proposed reforms to the Confederation structure. No more permanent council seats based on age or power. No more voting systems that give some species more influence than others. Every member gets an equal voice, from the oldest elven houses to the newest species to join. The display showed a new council structure where decisions would be made by consensus and compromise rather than domination by the most powerful members. Furthermore, Jake continued, Confederation membership should be open to any species that meets basic criteria for peaceful cooperation and technological development. No more arbitrary rejections based on age or cultural differences. Dr. Amy Foster stepped forward from the observation area. Humanity offers to share all of our trial innovations freely with the Confederation. The medical treatments, the diplomatic solutions, the military technologies, they belong to everyone. Luna rose from her platform. The elven houses have much to answer for regarding the conspiracy against humanity. But Captain Morrison offers us a chance to build something better instead of simply punishing the guilty. One by one, representatives from smaller species began to speak in support of Jake's proposals. The hive minds, after internal deliberation, announced that the collective found merit in equality-based governance. Several of the younger elven houses broke ranks with Lyra to support reform, but not everyone was pleased. The Xerian Empire delegation walked out of the chamber entirely. Some of the older elven houses followed them. A few other species that had benefited from the current power structure also left. You are tearing apart thousands of years of stable government, Lyra said coldly. Stable for whom? Jake replied. For the powerful species that got to make all the decisions while everyone else followed orders? That kind of stability is just another word for oppression. The debate continued for hours, but gradually consensus began to emerge. More species supported the reforms than opposed them. When the final vote came, the new Confederation structure was approved by a wide margin. Jake Morrison became the first leader of the reformed Galactic Confederation, but his title was First Speaker, rather than ruler or emperor. His term would last only 5 years, and any member species could challenge his decisions through democratic processes. The ceremony was simple. Instead of a crown or scepter, Jake was given a small device that would allow him to call Confederation meetings and coordinate responses to galactic threats. Real power would come from building consensus, not commanding obedience. As the ceremony ended, Zara approached Jake with a smile. The Xerian Empire has recalled me to face court-martial for my actions during the trials, but other Xerian citizens are beginning to question whether our government made the right choice in opposing these reforms. Change takes time, Jake said. Even the species that left today might come back when they see how the new system works. Luna joined them, looking tired but hopeful. Many young elves are already calling for new leadership in our houses. The old ways of thinking are finally being challenged. Jake looked around the chamber, now filled with representatives working together to plan the Confederation's future. Species that had barely spoken to each other before were sharing ideas and forming new alliances. "This is what humanity wanted all along," he said. "Not to conquer the galaxy, but to be part of something bigger than ourselves." Dr. Foster appeared, with a report tablet. "Jake, we're receiving applications for Confederation membership from 12 new species. Word about the reforms has spread quickly." "And the threats against human colonies?" Jake asked. "Ended as soon as the conspiracy was exposed," Zara replied. "Public opinion has turned against the idea of punishing humanity for succeeding in legal trials." Jake walked to the window that looked out over the space station's docking bays. Ships from dozens of different species were arriving and departing, carrying representatives who would help build a new kind of galactic government. "You know," Luna said as she joined him at the window, "the ancient throne was beautiful, but it always seemed lonely sitting by itself in the center of the chamber." Jake nodded. "Power should not be about sitting above others. It should be about bringing people together." The empty throne was no longer empty, but it was also no longer alone. Jake had taken his seat among equals, and in doing so, had begun to transform the galaxy itself. Years later, historians would mark Jake Morrison's refusal to claim absolute power as the moment when the Galactic Confederation truly became what its founders had originally intended: not a hierarchy of the strong ruling the weak, but a partnership of different species working together toward common goals. Humanity had finally found its place in the galaxy, not by demanding recognition, but by earning it through courage, innovation, and the wisdom to know that true leadership means serving others rather than commanding them.